And welcome to your Political Pulse. We are joined once again by South Dakota State Senator Casey Crabtree. The first time I had you on, I botched your name. Did you hear that? Like right out of the gate.
You know, I wasn't offended, but I appreciate you getting it right today.
I said Crabtree right off the rip, and I was like, I will never forgive myself for that. Hopefully the guy comes back on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back on, Blake. I'm glad to join you.
So shifting gears here, getting a little bit more serious. We were going to start with some state talk, but we are seeing something play out at the national level right now. The situation down in Venezuela, U.S. forces going down, capturing Nicolas Maduro and his wife, bringing them back to New York to face charges. As somebody who's vying or looking for a seat in Congress, this would be something you would be directly responding to. So right now, when you look at the situation, what do you make of the entire operation down there?
You know, as a father, and my two boys are in school, of course, I think all parents should be, feeling very good about the fact that President Trump took and indicted narco terrorists off the streets. I mean, this guy's been selling drugs into the United States and killing countless people. So to go in there and take him off the streets, begin to take those drugs off the streets, is just a fantastic job. So kudos to the president, and certainly a huge thank you and well done by our military men and women that executed on that.
One of the more impressive parts about the mission, if you just look at it objectively, is that there were no U.S. casualties.
Fantastic. And I think you look at a number of things in a row here, you're really seeing the president execute on, I think, peace through strength. And our excellent military men and women are really performing and keeping our country safer. And I like where we are at in the United States, where the world is at when the United States is a global leader.
One way this story ties directly in with Congress is there's been a lot of debate, some pushback, people saying that the president should have notified Congress on this. I want to go to some statements right now from Marco Rubio. We were talking about it before we came on the air here. He did about every Sunday show
he was on a lot.
Imaginable this last weekend. But Senator Marco Rubio, he's pushed back on the idea that this was needed, congressional approval. He said this was not an invasion, not an extended operation, saying it was a precise operation, a law enforcement operation. He said they could not afford leaks. He also said that the operation was up in the air, so being able to really give people a heads up on it would be difficult, given that they were uncertain it would even happen. Here he is on Meet the Press if we go to soundbite one here.
Well, we will seek congressional approval for actions that require congressional approval, but otherwise they will get congressional notification. And this is not an operation that required congressional approval. In fact, this is an operation akin to what virtually every single president for the last 40 years has conducted. The difference is that when it's Donald Trump, all these Democrats go bonkers.
So if you were in Congress, would this explanation satisfy you as to why Congress was not notified? And do you also accept that this was a law enforcement operation, not so much a military operation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the president was well within his constitutional right. This is somebody we had a warrant on, somebody who had been threatening our kids and the people here in the United States. And so kudos to the president for delivering on that, putting the American people first, delivering on the America First agenda. That's something that I have been continuously working on while I'm here for the last 5 years, and certainly something when we get to Congress that we'll be continuing to carry out.
And the U.S. is trying to enact some changes in Venezuela, they say, for national security concerns and also just to benefit the people of Venezuela. What would you like to see that process look like going forward?
Well, I think that we're going to handle that perfectly. And again, I think leading the country and leading the world with that peace through strength is something the president's doing a great job on. And I look forward to seeing Venezuela be somebody who's a partner with us again, instead of partnering with China, Russia, our adversaries. And so I look forward to a fruitful partnership going forward.
Yeah, we heard Secretary Rubio talking about some of this over the weekend. He says the U.S. is using an oil quarantine, a quarantine on their oil to make some of these demands. It really does seem like the U.S. is trying to work with at least the leader who took over with the absence of Maduro. This was somebody part of Maduro's regime, however. But anyways, here is Rubio on this time on ABC. He did all the shows.
He was on a lot of them.
He was going to my sound bites here. But here he is on ABC talking about all this.
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting, in some cases, law enforcement functions with the Coast Guard on the seizure of these boats. I'm obviously very intricately involved in these policies. And by the way, very intricately involved in moving forward and what we hope to see some of these changes being addressed. Unfortunately, the person that was there before, who was not the legitimate president of the country, was someone we could not work with, was someone that we could not. He had already suckered the Biden administration a couple of years ago on a deal he didn't keep, and this is someone we simply couldn't work with. We are hopeful that there are people in place now. We're going to find out. The proof will be in what they do or fail to do, that will start making some of these changes that will ultimately lead to a Venezuela that looks substantially and dramatically different from what's been in place for 15 years. But my number one objective is America. We care about Venezuela. We want it to do well moving forward. But our number one objective here is America. No more drugs, no more train de agua gangs coming our direction, and no more an area of the country in our hemisphere that becomes a crossroads for every single adversary we have around the world. Hezbollah, Iran, all of them have turned it into their playground. That can and will not continue under this administration.
So between what he's saying there, you hear him at the end saying it's a playground for Hezbollah, for Iran. We also just know through the indictment that the U.S. is alleging that Maduro and his wife were partnering with these cartels, bringing cocaine into the United States. How big of a national security risk do you think Venezuela was heading into this
I think you just said
operation?
I think you just said it. The secretary was very clear where they were running a drug cartel that was targeting our kids and people on our streets here. And so kudos to the president for keeping our country safe, making sure that America is not only safe but prosperous. And that's why I'm running for Congress, to stand with President Trump and make sure that we put America first and make sure that we're putting Americans where we can succeed going into the future.
Okay, on to state affairs. We'll take things much more locally here. We haven't spoke since Governor Roden laid out his budget. He proposed keeping spending flat for the big three: education, healthcare, state employees. Also proposed putting 12.5% into reserves over 10. Those are some of the key takeaways I noticed from his address there. What did you make of the governor's budget? Where do you agree with it? Where would you like to see some possible changes made?
Well, I think if you look at the budget overall, there's some things that should be pointed out. One is the 0% increases across the board. That's tough, and it's because the economy is tough. And if you go across the state, which I've been doing for the last few months and talking to people from whether it's small business or at the coffee shop, the economy is not in great shape here in South Dakota. We see it in better places, both North Dakota, Nebraska, other parts of the country, but South Dakota lagging a little bit behind. Now, I think a lot of that is because of Biden inflation over the last 4 years has really caught people, and they're paying the price for it now. So we really got to focus on strengthening our economy when we come into this, and that changes that whole picture when it comes to the budget. So we're going to have some real opportunities on that. We're going to have real opportunities to put money back in people's pockets, which is something I've focused on for the last 5 years and really proud of what we've delivered down to the governor's desk. We're going to have opportunities to do that on property taxes. We're going to have opportunities to do that on data centers. And I think that's going to be part of the major discussions this year.
It seems like one of the discussions that's going to bubble up is that if we are able to bring some of these data centers in, we might be able to offset property taxes. I know you're signed off Senate priming some data center legislation. It looks like, from what I understand, this would be tax exemptions for the equipment inside the data centers. And the idea here is to try to incentivize some of these data centers to actually come to South Dakota, because to my knowledge, given the current tax structure, we're just not landing data centers in the state.
Yeah, and let's be clear about where we really start. Like, why do we want these data centers, right? Well, it is clear, and in July 23 of 2025, the President of the United States issued an executive order that said it is a race to develop AI and develop data centers, the United States versus China. And the winner will be the global superpower going forward. So this is about national security. This is about economic strength. So that's where we start. And then we look inside the country. There's 41 states that have already adopted a modernized tax code, like you just mentioned, to make sure that these data centers can build and go forward. In South Dakota, we're proposing matching what 41 other states have already done. So we're not on the cutting edge there. But we've really learned from those that didn't do it the right way to make sure that we keep electric costs low for our consumers, that none of that gets shifted back onto them, that water usage is balanced, and most importantly, I think too, is that the locals have all the say in it. So there's local control, and local siting, local zoning will dictate whether or not that data center can build there. And at the end of the day, folks will get to decide if they want something that looks like an artificial intelligence factory at the edge of their community or outside of town. Now the benefits are real. We talked about the national security side, but on the economics, we're talking real jobs that pay really well. They hire our kids from here in South Dakota. We're talking guys that are going to school for electricians and plumber and HVAC, kids that are going to Dakota State and South Dakota School of Mines and Technology for the computer sciences and really protecting our country. And so good jobs on that. And then the real possibility is this is all new tax revenue that is getting placed into the state, and that can go back and equal about 10% worth of property tax relief locally. That's real relief for people, and that's across every classification. And so what we've done is not only make sure that we can deliver on the America First agenda that the president's talking about when it comes to data centers, but make sure that the people of South Dakota are the ones that get the real reward.
So I want to go into how this actually works. How do you ensure that those electric rates aren't passed on to consumers? Because I think when people hear this legislation, the how is one of the biggest questions they would have on this.
And it should be. I mean, electric costs have continued to rise. I go back and point to that. That has been something that's been happening because I really think under the Biden administration, everything went up because of inflation. So energy costs have gone up and they are too high. So what do we have to do? We've got to make sure that we're curbing that. We have an opportunity with this. They pay for the infrastructure, they pay for the generation, meaning the data centers, and then we get the reward as far as citizens of South Dakota. That's actually put into statute that none of those costs get shifted on to other folks. Another piece to that puzzle is that the Public Utilities Commission has oversight on any rate increases from the investor-owned utilities, any generation that's going to be built in the state, the Public Utilities Commission has oversight on. So we've got an oversight group as well, but we really are putting it into law. Other states haven't done that. It doesn't exist today, and that is a protection that I think people can really sleep well with, knowing that that's going to be in the law.
So it sounds like this will really be a big calling for that Utilities Commission to really be looking at how any of these rate increase decisions are made going forward.
Certainly, and what I think we should really talk about and point out is there's an example just across the border in North Dakota, Ellendale, North Dakota, data centers being built up there. MDU, Montana Dakota Utilities, presented to the legislature in an informal conversation last month that when they are able to turn that infrastructure on, turn that data center on, that they expect the residential customers in that area to see a decrease in their bill of about $250 annually. And so we're talking about a decrease because they are—
Is that because of volume?
Yes, it's the volume, but they're paying for the infrastructure that goes there, and we get the rewards as far as the citizens around it. So I think with data centers, if you do it right, the way we've done, and we've looked at the 41 other states that have done it before us, we've taken the best pieces of that and we've put this together in a way that works for South Dakotans, and the best part is it puts more money in the people's pockets here.
Do you expect yourself to do a lot of lobbying for this, some self-lobbying, talking to other lawmakers? I would imagine this is a topic that gets some skepticism, from many people. I mean, you see it everywhere, not even just in South Dakota. You see just a lot of, we'll say, concerns raised about data centers in the broader picture.
It's complex, and you got to sit down with folks and hear their concerns. And I think what I'm really looking forward to during the session is hearing those concerns when it comes to electric rates, when it comes to siting, when it comes to water usage, and saying, hey, we've heard that, and we've worked with that. We've sat down with people who are opposed to those, and we've crafted this legislation accordingly. And we've made sure that South Dakotans are the ones that get the reward when it comes to the economics of this. And then I'm going to remind you once again, this is a national security issue that President Trump is talking about and wants us to deliver on. It is a key part of his America First agenda, and it's something that I've worked on the entire 5 years that I've served in the legislature, and I intend to continue to work on that to stand strong on the America First agenda and deliver for the people of South Dakota.
Okay, so I want to talk about suppressors. We were talking about this before we got on the air. You've seen we've ran a few reports on this. You and Governor Roden have teamed up trying to remove suppressors off the list of state-controlled weapons. Why was this important legislation for you?
I think it's always important to show that South Dakota leads the way when it comes to the Second Amendment. For me personally, my oldest son, Kason, and I love to hunt together. And Kason's got a little bit of a hearing issue as a 18-year-old boy. And that I don't believe is caused by guns or loud music. I think that was just something he was born with. But this is just a piece of hearing protection when we talk about suppressors. Updating that law so that it follows along with the one big beautiful bill, showing the rest of the states in the country that South Dakota is leading the way, is something that we should lead on. And I'm excited about delivering on that. I think that's going to move through the legislative process quickly and get down to the governor's desk, and it should be a good celebration for all that are Second Amendment lovers like myself.
So when we spoke to the governor's office about this, he said that, you know, part of this move, the idea is to signal support for further deregulation, further federal deregulation, because we can take them off the state-controlled list here, but they're still you know, under the National Firearms Act. Are you hoping? Do you agree with this notion that hopefully this sends a signal to further deregulate these at the federal level?
Absolutely, and I think South Dakota is leading the way. We're going to be the first ones that do this, just because based on our legislative timeline, we're going to be the first ones that do this. We're going to see other states follow suit that looks just like us, and I think we're going to be able to deliver that and send a clear message to Washington, D.C. that that's where the people of this country are at.
So, sorry to interrupt you, but you said you spoke to Silencer Central about this, right? How has this impacted them? I mean, it's a big business here in South Dakota.
Well, any good piece of legislation comes with sitting down and talking to a lot of folks and getting their input, both people that are for it and people that are against it. This case, talking to Silencer Central, folks that have built an outstanding business in Sioux Falls, I know have been wonderful supporters of all kinds of outdoor conservation groups across this state. You know, they've talked about this as being a critical piece for them as they continue to invest in our state, employ people in South Dakota, and deliver on you know, what is, I think, a Second Amendment right. And so I love what they're doing. I'm proud to stand with them and have them be a part of this as well.
Okay, property tax legislation. We've seen a lot of proposals being thrown around. The task force alone came up with 19. We're hearing about some others. Realistically, what do you think is going to get done this session?
You know, I think there's about 2 or 3 really good ideas that are out there. So there's a lot of different ideas that get presented, and that's good. That's part of the way this process works. What I think we have to keep in mind is that there's people in South Dakota that are really hurting, and our property taxes have gotten higher on folks. Again, that goes back to Biden inflation and 4 years of what we saw there. Higher interest rates, higher costs on everything, and it's really impacting people across the board. They're certainly feeling it when it comes to property taxes. So this is a good opportunity for us to do something about it and make sure we keep more money in people's pockets. You know, there's a property tax relief fund that's being presented by Senator Dybert from out west here that I think is going to be a fantastic piece of that.
His idea is it's already money that's available, right? It just hasn't been used
We
yet.
got to allocate a fund that would stay just for that, which I think is a good idea. You know, in 2023 on the Senate floor, I pushed forward an idea for a property tax relief. We ultimately decided on a sales tax relief as the Senate and the House got together and negotiated that out in 2023 as our state's largest tax cut. I'd like to present going back to that original idea, which is putting that towards property tax relief. We're talking over $100 million that we could apply to owner-occupied relief here in South Dakota. I think that makes a big difference for moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, and everybody across South Dakota that are trying to pay their bills.
One of the things that we see the governor push back on this, I would love to get your thoughts on this. One of the proposals we saw was a 5% cut to state government spending. Have you figured out where you line up on that issue yet?
Well, I think we should always be very conscious of dollars that we're spending. This is the public's money, this is the taxpayers' money, and so we always got to be very, very mindful of that. The question that the governor really responded back to that group that was working on is you come back up with those cuts, and I would say the same thing. Come back up with what those cuts should be, where they should be, and let's evaluate that at that time. Right now, on the other side of things, I think we got to make sure our belt is tightened, and we've got to make sure that we make some smart decisions to deliver that relief. The issue I just brought up does exactly that.
Okay, do you see any weird issues bubbling up this go around? Do you see any debates bubbling up that you didn't see even but the last time you were in here, but all of a sudden you see a bill introduced, you're starting to hear some chatter, and you think this could really become contentious and here this next time?
I tell you what, there's always something that comes up. Last year, I didn't see horse dentistry being one of the major topics, right? But that was kind of an off-the-wall deal that became something that was debated heavily by my colleagues over in the House. And so there's always something that comes up that is interesting from that. But I'll just tell you, at the end of the day, I've gone across the state, east to west, north to south, talking to thousands and thousands of people over the last couple months. And what they're telling me is it's about the economy. I mean, they're hurting that way. We've got to make some real decisions in South Dakota. And I tell you what, it takes both vision and courage. We got to be looking out the windshield instead of the rearview mirror, and we've got to have real political courage that makes a difference not only for today, but for a decade from now. And that's what it takes to make sure that we're making a difference when it comes to the economy. That's the #1 concern by far for folks across this state, and that's what I've been delivering on for 5 years, and I look forward to working on it again this year.
What did you make of the governor's overall message when he spoke about the economy delivering that budget address recently?
Well, I think you can go back and look at a Moody's report that just really shows you where our economy is in South Dakota. It shows us in a recession. It shows North Dakota and Nebraska doing much better. And I think we should find that alarming. And we've got to make some real decisions about where we're going. And we just talked about things when it comes to property taxes. We talked about things when it comes to data centers. Some of these investments in our state, things that we can make sure work for the people that are here today. And we've got to be focused on that. That's what I do for a living, as you know. That's my professional job. That's what I've worked on politically. But we've got to have some vision for that. And that changes what the budget looks like, both at the state and our local level, and most importantly, for folks at home. I mean, I'm a family man. We sit down, we put our budget together, my wife and I and our 2 boys. It's a major issue for everybody across this state. And so I think we can make a difference, we can create opportunities, and we can make sure that there's more money in the people's pockets here in South Dakota.
Pardon my ignorance, but that Moody's report, I've yet to look at it. What did it show? So you're saying that we slipped back, but our neighboring states are doing better.
It showed South Dakota slipping back, and it showed North Dakota and Nebraska doing much better. And so we've got to keep pace not only there, but we don't want our kids leaving. At the end of the day, we want good jobs for our kids and our grandkids, right? We want more money in the people's pockets today, tomorrow, and a decade from now. And so it goes back to what I just talked about. It's vision and it's courage, and you got to have both of them. And I'm looking forward to working on that with 104 of my close colleagues here in a week.
How do you, and I just want to pick your brain on this, but how do you tap into the sense of of course, everybody wants to see economic growth. They want to see these opportunities, as you mentioned, a stronger economy. But a lot of times what comes with that is just higher rent, higher expenses for everybody living in the area. How do you balance those two, in your opinion?
Well, I think when you develop a strong economy, listen, this is the exact same thing that the president's talking about on the America First agenda, a strong economy, being energy dominant. When you're energy dominant, you lower the cost of everything. When you get a stronger economy, people are making more money, and you're really lowering the burdens that are on the individuals. And so that's really where you head with that is, how do we build a strong economy that works for the people of South Dakota? And there's a way to do that. And we've been doing that on a number of issues over the last 5 years. And historically, South Dakota's provided a business climate that has been welcoming to that. And we got to continue to work towards that. But you really have to look towards the future. I mean, I'll give you this. Governor Mickelson gave this in a State of the State address, many years ago, but he just talked about courageous politicians looking not for a win today, but for a decade from now. And that's really where we got to be. We got to think about what we can provide for relief today, but what we can do to build a stronger economy and more opportunities for our kids and grandkids for tomorrow.
Okay, so we talked data centers, suppressors, and property taxes, probably the widest 3 issues. But are you going to be zeroing in on any other issues this next session? Can we break some news on this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's one important issue that we're working on right now, and we're trying to dial that in to get it just right. Again, you got to have a lot of input to do this right. That's the key to good legislation. And we're working on making sure that we're having our military bases, our military installments secured. So in South Dakota, we banned 6 foreign countries from owning 160 acres of ag land. That's been something that they've been working at the federal level for a long time. And they haven't quite got it finished out in Congress, so we can do some things around our military installations to make sure that foreign countries, bad actors, aren't able to buy real estate right next to our military installations. Out here next to Ellsworth, as somebody that I've worked closely with over a number of years, this is something that's important to me, and I'm certainly hoping we can deliver that to the governor's desk. It'll work well to protect the men and women that are on the Ellsworth Air Force Base now, and then when we get to Congress, we can pass it there and make sure that we're protecting the whole country.
Would this also apply to the National Guard facilities in the state?
It would, yeah. It would, and so really what you got is you've identified, when we worked on the ag land ban that Governor Noem brought forward, it identified 6 countries that are put on there that are adversaries of ours. They don't want to work with us. I mean, they have bad intentions for our country. And I think this will be a great way to make sure our military men and women are safer and creates more opportunities for folks here.
I'm just trying to write the story now. So, would these be the same 6 countries that are banned from ag land?
Yep.
And is it primarily, are you concerned that they're buying commercial real estate, residential real estate? What are they buying nearby?
We just found what it is, a loophole, and it was identified when we were working through the ag land piece. So we were focused on tackling the ag land, but that left open industrial land, that opened commercial, that opened up residential. And so what we're doing is working on making sure that we've got the radius around those military installations that make sure that those are safe going forward.
Okay, State Senator Casey Crabtree, appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to get to before we close this up?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to join you, and it's been good listening to your interviews with everybody else that you're doing out here. So you do a great job.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it.
When I don't botch their name, right out of the gate.
You're doing great.
All right. Well, anyways, Senator, we do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And that will do it for your Political Pulse.